So good morning everyone. My name is Lalit Soni and I welcome you all in this live session by Drishti IAS. So as usual, we'll be taking a look at today's Indian Express. We'll discuss some important article, that is India's multidimensional poverty. And in this particular article, we'll be looking at the trends in the poverty. Okay, and we'll be looking at the data which indicates that we have achieved certain benchmarks in when we are talking about poverty in India. So we'll be talking about that. Then we'll be talking about turbulent trade in Red Sea. Okay, so Red Sea has been in news because of the chaos which has been created by the Houthi rebels over there. So because of which this area has been in news, and now it is impacting India's imports as well. So we'll talk about that. Okay, and then Davos summit. So this summit is related to a particular organization, that is World Economic Forum. So हम लोग उसके बारे we'll be talking about that. Okay, and then we'll look at some world affairs, and for your read I'll be giving you an article and we'll take some practice question. So if you are not already a subscriber of this channel, please subscribe the channel to get the regular updates of current affairs. Other than that, I saw this comment that should we make notes out of it. So I would suggest yes, because obviously these are articles which we are discussing. Most of the slides which has the content, like I'll tell you, when we are talking about this slide, so you have the data which is extracted from the newspaper, so you can directly note down this data. Okay, otherwise if you are finding something here, okay, which is not covered here, that you can do, but mostly I do cover all the significant data from this. Okay, other than that, sometimes you can use such pictures in your you can say notes. Okay, simply put a graph, put some numbers like 55 to 11 and show the trend that is declining. So such notes will come handy when you are going for the revision. Okay, so I would suggest make notes, but at the time of you are taking this class, or otherwise take 15 to 20 minutes extra, but do not go for like 2 and 3 hours of notes making from the newspaper. That is not going to yield much. Okay, so you have to go for the output ratio which it will provide. Okay, other than that, there was this questions related to the PDFs. We do share the PDFs after like 2-3 hours of the session. Okay, so you can check the link in the description. We have Telegram channel on which we share our PDFs. Okay, so let's start with the practice question which was given to you in the last class. Before that, if you want to have a look at the today's front page, this is there. So here Arun Yogi Raj Ram Lala idol is selected for inauguration of Ram Mandir. Okay, so here Ram Lala's idol will be in Shwet Varn, sorry, Shyam Varn. Shyam Varn is like, you can say, it will have a black color of statue. And then this person Arun Yogi Raj, his name, if you want to remember, that would be, that might be important for your PCS related exams. Okay, so that is there. Other than that, Modi and Putin discuss special strategic ties and future roadmap on phone conversation. Okay, so now the thing is, in today's newspaper, most of the things which we will be talking about has been covered already. Okay, so India Russia relations we have covered. Okay, when we are talking about Jaishankar's visit to Iran, we have covered that. When we are talking about situation in Red Sea or West Asia, we have covered all of this. So mostly today it will be like a revision. Okay, so let's start with the practice question which was given to you in the last class. Which Indian state recently received a geographical indication tag for Koraput Kala Jira? So now you must be wondering that it is very easy question, but the thing is you have done it like 2 or 3 days back, and yesterday also similar question was there. So because of which you might see that Odisha is the answer. So it seems very easy, but when you are in exam, so all of the options would equally look good. So that is why I would suggest go for the important GI tags list. Okay, so when we are talking about Koraput Kala Jira, so here you can see this is the picture of Koraput Kala Jira. It has a resemblance with Jira, or you can say cumin seeds. Okay, and since its color is a little bit on the black side, so this is Kala Jira. And when we are talking about this Koraput is the place in Odisha from which this particular variety is famous for, or you can say this place is famous for this particular variety. And when we are talking about geographical indicators, we know that they are actually attached to some kind of geographical origin. Okay, so Koraput has origin of this Kala Jira rice. Okay, so Odisha would be your right answer, option A. Okay, so moving further, we'll start with the first article. Okay, while late, so I'm sorry for the delay. Sometimes these internet start acting up, so because of that it was late. So let's come back to the discussion. India's multi-dimensional poverty rate down to 11.28 in 2022-23 from 29.17 in 2013-14. So when we are talking about the trend, you can say that this data is giving you a trend which is saying that poverty in India is declining. Here we are talking about multi-dimensional poverty, not only on the basis of income, but there are various indicators we'll be having a look at, like health, living standards, education. On those indicators we are going for such data. When we are talking about multi-dimensional poverty, there are some 12 indicators broadly categorized in 3 categories, that is health, living standard and education. Okay, so when we are talking about all this data we have covered in this slide, so we'll be looking at those things. Otherwise you can see here in 2005-6 we have this proportion or percentage of poverty, that is 55.36%, that is more than 50% of the population was under poverty. And then we have seen this declining trends. So in 2013-14 we have 29.17, and now at this juncture 22-23 we have 11.28. okay, that is what data is saying. These data are collection of previous data from your National Family Health Survey. Okay, so sometimes these data are even older. Okay, so MPI data based on National Family Health Surveys. Okay, so that is important thing, or that is an important fact you might remember. Okay, in this data mostly since we are talking about this family health surveys, so there are chances that these data are pre-COVID. So we can say that they cannot or do not give the clear picture of post-COVID economy. Okay, so till now we will be looking at these data. Afterwards we'll see if there is new data or not. Share of India's population in multidimensional poverty fell from 29.17% to 11.28%. So right now if someone is asking you, or if you want to use some kind of data in your mains examination, so from your multidimensional poverty index MPI you can use this data, that is 11.28%. okay, moving further, approx 24.82 crore people escaped multidimensional poverty in the 9 years period. So since last data, that is 2013-14, which we are taking reference of, so from 9 years, in the 9 years we have moved out these much people, 24.82 crore people out of the multidimensional poverty. Okay, so that is a significant number. Okay, moving further, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan saw the sharpest decline in the poverty. Okay, so these areas has performed better since the last time, but still when we are talking about Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, these areas having a larger population, okay, and because of which per capita income is lower there. But right now you can say that performed better. Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan saw the sharpest decline in the poverty according to multidimensional poverty index. Now if we see, this index considered 12 indicators in health, education and standard of living. So these are the 3 broad criteria on the basis of which we have taken some 12 indicators, and those 12 indicators decide that which person is relatively poor or not. Okay, severity of deprivation decreases with a slightly lower rate in 2015-16 to 2019-21 compared to 2005-6 to 13-14. Okay, severity of, you can say, deprivation. There is a class, you can say there are 2 classes in our, let's say, country. There is haves and have not. So when we are talking about have not, they are kind of deprived. Okay, so when we are talking about severity of deprived, that has decreased relatively lower this time. Okay, that is not an important fact for you because they might not even go into such details, but just for a trend analysis I told you that the severity of deprivation, or you can say people having lack of few services or lack of, let's say, education or health, okay, that rate is slightly lower this time. COVID-19 impact may not be fully reflected as some data was collected before pandemic, which we have talked about. Then India likely to achieve sustainable development goal SDG target 1.2 ahead of 2030. So basically earlier I have told you that you have to remember all these SDGs, okay, sustainable development goal, because these 17 goal you can use in your mains answer writing everywhere. Okay, even your ethics essay writing you can use these goals, and we know that they are fixed 17 goals, so you can use them. Okay, So India is doing good on this particular target, that is 1.2. Indicators in the standard of living dimension showed the highest deprivation in 2005-6. So this data is old, so that won't be significant for us. Significant reduction in the percentage of population deprived of cooking fuel and sanitation facilities. Okay, when we are talking about this severity of deprivation, here you can see there are some data. They are saying that when we are talking about cooking fuel and sanitation facilities, there is a number of or significant number is there which is deprived from such which was deprived from such services, but now there is a reduction in that number, because obviously for cooking fuel we have Ujjwala Yojana, okay, and even for the sanitation facility etc. we have Swachh Bharat, ODF status, all these things, or you can say initiative which has been taken by the government, and which we are seeing results of. SS2 bank account showed the sharpest decline in the deprivation, indicating progress in the financial inclusion. Okay, fine. When we are talking about financial inclusion, we have this Jan Dhan Aadhar, okay, and Jan Dhan Yojana was there. Other than that, there are various schemes of government which are trying to go for financial inclusion, and we are seeing the results now. Okay. Now moving further, what is your multidimensional poverty index? Okay, global multidimensional poverty index, MPI 2020. You can say this every year they launch it. So first it was launched in 2010. It reflects the multiple deprivation that poor people face in the areas of education, health and living standards. These are the three criteria which is important, and you should remember that. Okay, MPI range from 0 to 1, and higher value implies higher poverty. Okay, so if there is 0, there is no poverty. If there is 1, the highest poverty is prevailing over there. Then it is related by United Nations Developmental Program, that UNDP, and Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, that is OPHI. So this fact is also important, so you have to remember this as well. When we are talking about indicators which we have taken, that health is one, then education is there, and standard of living is there. When we are talking about, there are 12 indicators they have given, that's nutrition, child mortality, years in schooling, school attendance, intensity of poverty, head count ratio, cooking fuel, electricity, sanitation, housing, assets, drinking water. These are the indicators. You don't have to remember all these indicators. Only important fact is there are 3 categories, that is health, education and standard of living, on which we are deciding this multidimensional poverty index. Okay, if you remember few of them, that would be good. Okay, now moving further, second article of the day, crisis can impact India's 80% of the export to Europe take place via Red Sea. So we have discussed this article again and again and again, but earlier I told you that most of our oil imports are basically because of from the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, and because of which till now we were not affected. But the thing is, if this particular crisis go on for a longer time, ultimately we will also see the impact. Other than that, when we are talking about the security in this particular region, we have seen that India's off coast, or you can say Porbandar's off coast, we have seen attack by Houthis on our shipping vessels over there. Okay, there were people from Indian crew inside that particular vessel, and such is the impact of this war, which is started in Gaza and it has spread in this area, and now it is nearly on the Indian coast as well. Okay, and other than that, when we are talking about the trade related aspect or the economy related aspect, this area hosts a lot of traffic, you can say. Okay, so here you can say the Red Sea shipping crisis could impact India's export to Europe the most, as about 80% of the outbound shipment to Europe take place through Red Sea area. So when we are talking about 80% of the shipments, when we are talking about India's export or import to Europe, so 80% of the traffic is through this particular area, which will obviously, if this area is not peaceful or it is not free and open to navigation, that will create chaos for India as well. Okay. Now when we are talking about European Union, okay, so we have seen already a decline in demand. So when demand is already slow over there, and because of which our trade is already impacting. Other than that, when there is issue like this, which will ultimately increase the prices. Okay, because if this area is not stable, so there will be a time cost. Second thing is insurance cost. Okay, and if this area is not stable, if we have to take another route, so because of which that route or excess travel will charge even higher, because of which our exports can be more, or you can say less competitive in the global market. Okay, so when we are talking about Europe, already demand is slowing over there, and at that particular juncture now we are having this issue in the Red Sea. Other than that, when we are talking about European Union, you must have heard of this carbon tax. Okay, so they are also going for this carbon tax from 2026, and this will ultimately harm India's interest when we are talking about the trade. Okay, so here it is already slowed due to the weakened demand in the backdrop of Russia Ukraine war. Okay, that is one thing. The EU contributes to over 15% of India's total goods export. So when we are talking about exports, 15% of export is to European Union, and European Union is going for such non-tariff barriers like carbon tax. And then when we are talking about demand is already slowing down because of the Ukraine war in the area. Okay, a number of environmental related trade measures, as I told you, carbon border adjustment mechanism, use deforestation law, that is fearing, we are fearing that India's export might get hurt because of such measures. Okay, now increase in the attacks on the commercial shipment vessel traveling through the lower Red Sea, it will ultimately enhance the cost in the area. Okay, in the when we are talking about the navigation in the area and the trade which is taking place from the area, it will ultimately increase the cost. All these things we have already talked about. When we are talking about the another issue related to Panama, Panama is also facing some kind of issue because there is the lack of water, and because of which we are not able to navigate the area. So Panama canal is the canal which is basically connecting Pacific to Atlantic, and if there is no there is lack of water, and because of which we cannot navigate through the canal, we have to circumvent the whole you can say South American continent. Okay, so that is also issue. So all these things are related to your crisis in Red Sea. Okay, so all these things we have discussed, that high freight and surcharges will be there, insurance cost will be there, high freight cost, insurance premiums, longer transit time, which will significantly make the exports or imports more expensive. Okay, so that is about the crisis in Red Sea, and because of which India might also face issues because of this, because we have this 80% of export to Europe through this particular route. Okay, so now moving ahead, Modi and Putin discuss special strategic ties and future roadmap. So ultimately, it is a phone call between Vladimir Putin and Mr. Modi, and they have discussed some global issues. Okay, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin had a good conversation, discussed various range of aspects, special and privileged strategic partners. So this is the status of our partnership, that is special and privileged strategic partner. So these names, when we are talking about in the strategic partnership, comprehensive partnership, all these things, they have some kind of significant attached to it, because otherwise they won't be there. All of the, when we are talking about with USA, we have strategic partnership. Okay, but a certain specific kind of partnership. When we are talking about Russia, we have a strategic partnership, but a special kind of strategic partnership. So here you can say special and privileged strategic partnership we have. Okay, so Modi said he and Putin also agreed to chalk out a roadmap for future initiative when we are talking about India and Russia relations. Okay, we are trying to connect far east of Russia with India. Okay, other than that, there are various developmental projects which we are trying to invest in Russia's far east. Okay, and then various regional and global issues they have talked, including Russia's presidency of BRICS. So in the next BRICS summit, Russia will be presiding over the BRICS, and that also has discussed that what could be the agenda. Okay, what could be the interest of both the countries. Okay, during the last 23 months of Russia-Ukraine war, India has maintained steady ties with Russia while also advocating a peaceful resolution on the conflicts through the dialogue and diplomacy. When we are talking about Russia-Ukraine, though we have this inclination with USA, and USA is in favor of Ukraine, or we can say whole of West is in favor of Ukraine, but India has maintained a balance between USA and Russia this time. We had not criticized this particular action by Russia on Ukraine. We have said that you should not go for war. This is not an era of war. You should go for dialogue and diplomacy. Okay. The phone calls comes a day. NSAs of several countries met in Davos to discuss a peace plan for Ukraine. So there was this another summit in Davos, and national security advisors had met there. Okay, and they have discussed a peace plan for Ukraine. And after that, or you can say next day of that, this phone call comes to PM Modi. Okay, so here they have discussed few things that PM conveyed to Putin his best wishes for Russia's presidency for BRICS 2024 and assured him of India's full support. That is one thing. The achievements in the practical cooperation in such areas such as trade, economy, scientific and technical cooperation, energy, transport, logistics and cooperation in Russian Far East were noted with satisfaction. So as I told you, most of the pointers are here in general, but when we are talking about Russia's Far East, we are trying to connect with Russia's Far East. Okay, so that is one thing. India intends to help implement goals and objective of Russia's chairmanship. When we are talking about BRICS, they have said that we will be giving you the full support here as well. The phone call between two leaders comes a day after meeting of the national security advisors of almost 80 countries in Davos to discuss peace formula for Ukraine, with host Switzerland asserting that India can play a key role leveraging its influence in Russia. So here in this meeting of national security advisor in Davos, Switzerland, they have said that India has a close relation with Russia, and India can utilize that and play a key role when we are talking about Ukraine's peace process. Okay, so that is what has been discussed in the National Security Advisor Summit. And then last month, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar had made a 5 days visit to Russia. So basically, as I told you, that Russia and India has this arrangement that at every alternate years, the leaders of these countries meet to their respective countries. Okay, but that particular summit or meeting has not been happening since last two time. Okay, last time when we are talking about PM Modi could not go there because before this particular meeting, this Russia's attack on Ukraine happened. And then in the last time when we are talking about 2023 in G20, Russia could not come to India. So ultimately these meetings could not happen. Okay, here you can say India and Russia relations remains very steady and very strong and are based on strategic convergence on geopolitical interest and mutual benefits. Okay, India and Russia have an annual summit at leaders level where the Indian Prime Minister and the Russian President visit each other's country every alternate year. However, after the war in Ukraine broke out, Modi did not travel to Russia for the annual summit in 2022, and visit did not take place last year because of the scheduling issues of President Putin. Okay, so that is about India and Russia relations. Mostly we can say that India and Russia are having cordial relations. We have another level of cooperation when we are talking about every aspect of trade, economy, science and tech, technology transfer, defense. Okay, other than that, now we are working on the connectivity as well. Okay, so now moving further to the next article, that is your Jaishankar in Iran discusses Chabar Red Sea attack. So in this particular article also same story has been repeated about the, Gaza and Red Sea and Chabar. Okay, so Chabar is important for us if you want to connect to Middle East without entering into Pakistan. Okay, so Pakistan is you can say a country which is between India and the Middle East, and now if we use Iran's Chabar port, that can help us connect with the Middle East region, and other than that that can enhance our trade with the these countries. Okay, so that is one thing. Okay, so in this particular talks they have talked about this Chabar project, and they said that two sides reached a final agreement to develop Chabar port in southeastern Iran. Now it is your duty to go and check where this Chabar port is. Okay, or in some next article we will be discussing about that as well. Chabar port is important for the connectivity of India to Middle East, and when we are talking about Chabar, there is another project which is ultimately from Chabar it will connect to Afghanistan. Okay, so you have to go through that particular thing from your Google search or internet. Okay, other than that they have talked about few things related to the fighting situation in Red Sea. Since I have told you various times that Houthi rebels are supported by Iran. Okay, so now when our external affairs minister is in Iran, they are talking about this thing. Iran has said that they are also concerned about situation in the Red Sea. They are concerned about the situation in Gaza Strip. Okay, so ultimately all of them are talking about one thing, that is dialogue and diplomacy. Okay, so that we can see in the future what happens. But right now in this particular summit there was not much to talk about. Only one development was that they have agreed on this Chabar port. Earlier also we were agreed about this Chabar port, but there was some issue after US's interference. Okay, so now ultimately we are back to the same point wherein we will be developing this Chabar port again. Okay, so that is one thing. Other than that, visiting Iran in the middle of the escalation in West Asian conflict and challenging situation in the Red Sea. Okay, so while this situation is going on, we have gone for this visit. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Monday said that said attack on the ship in the vicinity of India is matter of grave concern to the international community, and such threat have a direct bearing on India's energy and economic interest, underlining that the fraud situation is not in the benefit of any party. So basically here in this visit he has said that the whatever attacks which has happened on off Porbandar coast, okay, that is concerning for us, because ultimately it will hinder India's trade, which we have just discussed, that 80% of the trade to Europe is done through this particular sea route, and that is why this is important for us. Okay, so mostly this is about the this particular thing. Here you can say India has a long standing and uncompromising position against terrorism in all form and manifestation. So here we are talking about against Hamas, that what they have done on October 7th. But at the same time, we strongly believe that it is imperative to avoid loss of civilian life in any conflict situation. Okay, so here I stress on the need for all parties to avoid proactive and escalatory actions and to facilitate movement towards dialogue and diplomacy. Ultimately, everything comes back to the dialogue and diplomacy. So that is about this particular article. If there is a certain concrete development in this particular thing or in this particular visit, we will be taking it back in the next episode. Now, Davos Summit. Okay, annual meeting of World Economic Forum is being held from January 15th to 19th in Davos, Switzerland. So that is one thing, Davos, Switzerland. And this Davos Summit is related to your World Economic Forum. Okay, so these are two facts which is important. They might even ask you that. Okay, so now here you can say various people, or you can say various important personalities of economic world has come and met here. Okay, who initiated the World Economic Forum? So there was this German professor, that is Klaus Schwab. Okay, so he is considered as the founder of World Economic Forum. At that particular point of time, this was earlier European Management Forum. Okay, so here concept was that all the stakeholders should come together and go for the management of the European economy. Here they have used this concept of stakeholders capitalism. Okay, stakeholder capitalism, according to which it is a form of capitalism in which companies do not only optimize short-term profits for shareholders but seek long-term value creation by taking into account the needs of all their stakeholders and the society at large. So when we are talking about stakeholders, so they are not going for the short-term profit, but they are going for the infrastructure creation or the capital creation, which will ultimately be beneficial for all the stakeholders as well as the society. Okay, so here somewhere you can see some kind of element of welfare is attached to it. Okay, though it is capitalism, but it has some element which is ultimately talking about welfare of the society. Okay, so on the basis of that particular concept, this forum was started. The concept is stakeholders capitalism. They can ask you this, so this is important, this paragraph is important, you can add it to your notes. Okay, so the idea says that a company should serve all its stakeholders, not just its shareholders, employees, suppliers, and community, at large. So ultimately, they are talking about the company should not only serve for the shareholders, but all the stakeholders, including your employees and the community as large. So, okay. So as an extension of the idea, business, government, and the civil society leaders have made their way to the high Alps to consider the major global issue of the day and to brainstorm solutions to address these challenges. So ultimately, when this idea of stakeholder capitalism, it enhanced and expanded to various forms and various streams of our life. So ultimately, what came out of it is that most of the time in this forum we will be discussing about all the global issues. Okay, So ultimately, with economy as well as the global issues in the international politics or the geopolitics, we'll be discussing all those things here, and we'll be trying to finding the solution of it. Okay, so that is about your Davos summit, how European firms could catch up with US management practices. So initially this was the focus of this particular thing, that how Europe versus US was there. Okay, so how they will manage with the uh, how European firms could catch up with the US management practices. Okay, so ultimately it was about catching up with USA at that particular point of time. Okay, but afterwards, when we are talking about things like collapse of Bretton Woods and then Israeli Arab wars, all these things has happened, and because of which the area of focus has actually expanded, because of these wars. Ultimately there were some impacts on European economy, on the world's economy, and considering that how geopolitics is impacting economy, and that is why this particular forum started, considering it itself as World Economic Forum, and they started to take issues related to geopolitics and geoeconomy. Okay, so now when we are talking about the headquarter, it is in Davos, Switzerland. Okay, so here you can see. And now when we are talking about World Economic Forum, so let's have a brief idea of World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum, WEF, is Swiss non-profit foundation established in 1971 based in Geneva, Switzerland. Okay, now when we are talking about mission, so I'm sorry about it, but when we are talking about headquarter of WEF, it is in Geneva, Switzerland. Okay, so when we are talking about Davos summit, that is happening in Davos in Switzerland. Okay, now mission, it is committed to improving the state of world by engaging businesses, political, academic and other leaders of the society to shape global, regional and industrial agendas. So ultimately here we are taking nearly almost all the issues, like be it economic, political, academic or other issues of the society. Okay, founder, as I told you, Klaus Schwab is the founder of this particular organization, and there are some important reports which has been published by World Economic Forum, that are Energy Transition Index, Global Competitiveness Index, Global IT Report, which is developed by World Economic Forum along with the INCEAD, and Cornell University published this report. Okay, Global Gender Gap Report, Global Risk Report, Global Travel and Tourism Report. So these reports are quite important, so you can note it down at one place, and these reports are basically published by World Economic Forum. Now for your own read, when we are talking about this article which come in your explained section, that is what latest inflation data say. We have taken this article yesterday. We have discussed how inflation has increased, how headline inflation is increasing, how core inflation is acting upon. All these things we have discussed yesterday, and what are the factors which are behind this increase in the inflation. All these things you can say, basically we have talked about the food prices which are basically guiding the inflation right now. Okay, and they are quite volatile because of the market prices. Other than that, when we are talking about the rainfall, irrigation facilities, all these things are basically ultimately impact the food prices, and food prices are ultimately impacting the CPI right now. Okay, so this is about this article. Here you can talk look at the what is CPI, the static part of it, and then how it is calculated and how these data are showing the trends. Okay, so that you can read at your own. Moving to your practice question, what is the primary mission of the World Economic Forum? Options are A, to promote Swiss non-profit foundation globally, B, to engage business, political, academic and other leaders to improve the state of the world, C, exclusively focus on the economic issues in Switzerland, and D, to publish reports on international cooperation. So now you have to basically go for the most appropriate answer and then comment in the your comment box of YouTube. Okay, now for your mains, you can see this question. Discuss in brief about the multi-dimensional poverty index. So they have said that discuss in brief. You have to give the idea that who is what is this multi-dimensional poverty index, who is publishing it, and what are the indicators they are using. So all these ideas you can give it in this particular section. Then, do you believe it provides a more comprehensive understanding compared to the traditional income based assessment? So here they are talking about income based assessment versus how multidimensional poverty is different, and how do you see it performing. Okay, so one thing, when we are talking about income based whatever assessment we are doing, that are related to your income, so ultimately that are just related to a quantity or a value. Okay, so if someone is having less income, he will be poor. Someone is having higher income, so he will be out of the poverty. So okay, that is one assessment, that is because of your traditional income based assessments. Okay, when we are talking about multi-dimensional poverty, so here we are along with income at times, we are going for various indicators that are related to your standard of living, your education, your health. So basically they are talking about your overall holistic development. Okay, so ultimately that is a better indicator of poverty, okay, than income based assessments. So this is how you can compare these two practices and answer here. Okay, so that is for a 10 marker, so you have to go for 150 words. Okay, so with that, mostly we will finish this today's session. Before ending the session, I will just have a look at the comment sections. So ये class regular होता है Monday to Friday. This happened on Monday to Friday at 10:30. And if there is any kind of change, we will update it on the your YouTube. There is time mentioned in your class. Okay, other than that, when we are talking about your Saturday and Sunday's newspaper, so we try to cover it on your Monday's session, so don't worry about that. बाकी सब्जेक्ट का क्लास कब होता है? So you can go through the YouTube, and there are various you can say episodes like series like In Focus, In Depth, in News, wherein we cover all our current affairs. So you can go through our YouTube channel, and if you have not subscribed it, so please subscribe it, so you can get all the updates at time. Okay. स्टॉक मार्केट पर इसका क्या इफेक्ट आएगा? तो कुशाल Katira, you can type your question in brief in the comment box, because I could not understand about what you are talking about here. So you do it in the YouTube's comment box. I will take it in the next class. So with that, I would like to wrap up the session. So have a good day. Thank you. I'll see you again. Bye.